Tim Prister with Tim O'Malley, Brian Kelly with his press conference talking about Florida State, talking about how much the Seminoles have improved since the beginning of the year. They were incapable of doing a whole lot at the beginning of the year, so they have made improvements. They can throw the ball down the field. They're good against the run, generally speaking, but they're a bad football team in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, well, their offensive line is their biggest problem, and it's exacerbated by the fact that they have a quarterback issue. They have a quarterback controversy, and it's not a good one. It's not the type where you're like, these two guys both got to be on the field because they're our best playmakers, and I think that's going to kind of bleed into this week of their preparation. But, they do have some talent, so to completely overlook Florida State would be wrong. But to say they've improved a lot, it is just from ground zero, right, because they really struggled early in the year. And in fairness, it's a program 180 with a new head coach, and they haven't gotten there yet.
Well, Blackmon will take over a quarterback, or he did last week. He had 421 yards passing against NC State. It wasn't enough because they're bad in so many different areas. But we'll address that in our podcast on Thursday. More Notre Dame-related stuff. Drue Tranquill, I thought it was interesting and funny. Brian Kelly says they don't ask the doctors as to whether Drue Tranquill can play every snap. They asked Drue what he's going to do. They would like to be judicious. That was the word that Brian Kelly used in his snaps during the week. But clearly, Drue Tranquill expects to and will be ready for full game activity against Florida State.
Reason number 2 Notre Dame should get away from Florida State is so they don't have to play a lot of Drue Tranquill in the fourth quarter, because they need him a lot versus Syracuse and versus USC. It's hard to blank on USC, but I did. If you think about it, Drue Tranquill playing in that nickel, playing in that dime, it is so important later in the year, but he's a medical marvel. If he keeps improving, he'll be fine in this game, and judicious means maybe keep him out of the base again, other than starting. It is senior day. It's going to be hard to keep that kid off the field from senior day in any shape or form.
I asked about Ian Book, and the whole concept of changing a play at the line of scrimmage really is kind of archaic now with the implementation of our RPOs. The decision-making comes after the snap, and Ian Book's been very good at it. And Brian Kelly said, once he sees it, he knows it. And I get that, from game to game, a new team offers you something a little bit to consume. But he's a pretty quick study, and usually by the second half, he has it figured out.
Yeah, I immediately thought back to we talked to Joe Schmidt about how he was able to pick up that the new defense coming in with Brian Van Gorder. It was complicated, and he said, I'm a conceptual learner. I can't learn the way other people do, and Ian Book is a guy that learns by seeing, almost learns by example, learns by living it, and there's nothing to argue with there because he is unreal in the second half. And look, it's strange that Notre Dame stagnates a little in the first half because or the first couple drives, because that was their calling card under Brandon Wimbush. But now it's much better how I think Book just kind of adapts the situation, and then he can really go out and play at that point.
Taking a look at more personnel for Notre Dame, Jafar Armstrong, a lot of people were wondering why he only had 4 carries. I guess he tweaked an ankle last weekend against Northwestern. It sounds like Tariq Bracy, who a lot of people were expecting once he served his, 1-game suspension, would play more last week. He did not, but it sounds like he'll be in a flow this week.
Well, traits came up. The word traits came up, and his traits are trending positively, so that means he could be in the 2 deep. He was on the field last week. I guess he was on special teams. I didn't make note of it, but when you look back at the participation, he was there. He came out, one of the first guys running out on the field. So it was probably a 1-game suspension, and then he's a freshman. He probably didn't earn his spot back, if you want to think of it that way. And they will need him more going forward against Florida State's passing attack, and then in the weeks to come.
We'll talk more about this matchup in Thursday's podcast when Notre Dame takes on Florida State this weekend in Notre Dame Stadium.